The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein. For he has founded it upon the seas, and established it upon the rivers. Psalm 24, verses 1 and 2. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside let freedom ring. Hello and welcome to Yesterday's Ink. Here at this podcast we explore the pages of history's literature. My name is Jessica, I'm your host. This is a very special episode 5. Happy 250th birthday, USA! It is such a blessing to be able to celebrate the 250th birthday of our great nation and celebrate that we are free. God has blessed us with so much, and He is the only reason why our country exists, and it is truly a blessing to be able to thank Him for it. So hopefully this will be coming out on the 4th of July, and perhaps it can add to your festivities. I'm actually recording this on July 2nd, 2026, which, from something I heard recently, was the day that the USA actually became independent from Britain. The 4th, however, was the day that our independence was publicly declared, and when the first two people signed the Declaration of Independence, who were John Hancock and the Secretary of Congress. So, I am going to read some selections of scripture. I have them marked with other paper. Alright, the first selection is, Leviticus chapter 25, verse 10. And you shall consecrate the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you, when each of you shall return to his property, and each of you shall return to his clan. And that one phrase there, proclaim liberty throughout the land to all its inhabitants. This is a different version than was used on the Liberty Bell, but that portion is what is carved on the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia. So, yeah. Proclaim liberty throughout the land to all the inhabitants thereof, it says on the Liberty Bell. Alright, the second selection is Proverbs 14, verse 34. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. And then this one I didn't have marked, but it's easy to find. John chapter 3, verse 16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. And then my final selection is 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 17. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And I know there's another, I don't remember the exact reference, but I know there's another verse somewhere that says that it was for freedom that Christ has set us free. I don't know if I remember the exact words, but I love that part, that Christ set us free for freedom. And, yeah. Anyway, so that's the scripture reading for this episode. The first selection of other material that I'm going to read is actually a letter that was written on July 4, 1776. So the day that the Declaration of Independence was approved, I think, and that the first two people signed it, and it was publicly declared. On that day, one of the signers wrote a letter to his younger brother. The signer is Caesar Rodney, and I have an image of the actual letter that he wrote that I'm going to read this from. Now, I did find an article online that was like reprinted from the New York Times, or reposted, that gave a transcription of the letter, and that transcription was published back in like 1926 or something. So that helped me understand what this says a little bit better, because the handwriting is not the easiest to read all the way. But alright, here we go. I am going to zoom in on this a little bit more. Alright, Philadelphia, July the 4th, 1776. Sir, I have enclosed you a summons directed to the sheriff to summon the member for our county, I think is what it was, to meet in assembly at Newcastle on the 22nd day of this instant, which I hope you will have put into his hands as soon as possible after it comes to yours. I arrived in Congress, the something, oh yeah, it's though detained by thunder and rain, time enough to give my voice in the matter of independence. It is now determined by the 13 United Colonies, with not even one dissenting colony. We have now got through with the whole of the Declaration, and ordered it to be printed, so that you will soon have the pleasure of seeing it. Handbills of it will be printed, and sent to the armies, cities, country towns, etc., to be published, or rather proclaimed in form. Then he finishes with, don't neglect to attend closely and carefully to my harvest, and maybe general obligations. That's what it means. Yours, etc., Caesar Rodney. So that was a letter from Caesar Rodney, signer of the Declaration of Independence, to his brother, Thomas Rodney, written on July 4, 1776. So that's cool. Now, before I continue, I wanted to take a moment and give you my resource highlight for this month. I started doing that back in episode 3, I think, where I mean, the goal is every month, but that doesn't necessarily happen. Give you a resource that I want to highlight for good information, good, something that I think is good, such as even a book that I think is a good read, or a ministry that gives good information, or whatever. So this month, I thought it would be fitting to highlight Wall Builders, which is a ministry that, in their own words from their website, Wall Builders helps people discover the true story of America and our biblical foundation. So they want people to know the truth about American history and the influence that God and His Word have had on our nation. And they're not just like people who have an agenda and they're trying to convince you of it. They seek the truth. They want to know the truth, and they want to tell you the truth. And they get their information from original documents, like the letter that I just read, original documents in people's original handwriting, and primary sources, things like diaries, letters, proclamations, and so that's where they get their information from. They're not just making things up. They're not just making up the fact that, oh, this founder was a Christian. No, it's from his own testimony. It's from his own beliefs and his own character. And so I want to encourage you to check out Wall Builders. They've got a lot of information on their website and on their social media. I'll put links in the comments down below for you to check them out if you're interested. And there's all sorts of stories that they tell about American history, and it's really fascinating. Like, for example, did you know that the very first American double agent was in the Revolutionary War by the name of James Armistead Lafayette? I think he might have added Lafayette sometime after the war, but yeah, he was amazing. So that's just an example of one story that they tell. And so, yeah, you can check them out. Also, I wanted to highlight they have a new book that they just released about the signers of the Declaration of Independence. It's called Lives, Fortunes, and Sacred Honor. So that should be a really good book. That would be great to be able to read. You can check it out. I'll put a link about it in the description. Not in the description, sorry, in the comments. Anyway, so yeah, that's my resource highlight for this month. And now I'm going to read the Declaration of Independence. So let me get the papers together that I have it printed on. Alright. This is the Declaration of Independence. In Congress, July 4, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shewn that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, to throw off such government, and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has obstructed the administration of justice, by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices, and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices, and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people, and eat out their substance. He has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments, for suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy the head of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. In every stage of these oppressions we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity. We must, therefore, acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace friends. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And then the following are the names of the signers. From Georgia, Button Gwinnett, Lyman Hall, and George Walton. From North Carolina, William Hooper, Joseph Hughes, and John Penn. From South Carolina, Edward Rutledge, Thomas Hayward Jr., Thomas Lynch Jr., and Arthur Middleton. From Massachusetts, John Hancock. From Maryland, Samuel Chase, William Paca, Thomas Stone, and Charles Carroll of Carrollton. From Virginia, George Wythe, Richard Henry Lee, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Harrison, Thomas Nelson Jr., Francis Lightfoot Lee, and Carter Braxton. From Pennsylvania, Robert Morris, Benjamin Rush, Benjamin Franklin, John Morton, George Clymer, James Smith, George Taylor, James Wilson, and George Ross. From Delaware, Caesar Rodney, George Reed, and Thomas McKean. From New York, William Floyd, Philip Livingston, Francis Lewis, and Lewis Morris. From New Jersey, Richard Stockton, John Witherspoon, Francis Hopkinson, John Hart, and Abraham Clark. From New Hampshire, Josiah Bartlett, and William Whipple. Also from Massachusetts, Samuel Adams, John Adams, Robert Treat Paine, and Elbridge Gerry. From Rhode Island, Stephen Hopkins and William Ellery. From Connecticut, Roger Sherman, Samuel Huntington, William Williams, and Oliver Wolcott. And also from New Hampshire, Matthew Thornton. All right, that was the Declaration of Independence. Now, I have a couple of selections left for this episode, and one of them is the national anthem, which is the Star-Spangled Banner, and I'm actually going to sing that, and sing the whole song, not just the first verse. And of course, you guys can judge how good the singing is, but I'm going to stand up for singing it for this episode. This is the Star-Spangled Banner, written by Francis Scott Key. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bomb bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? On the shore dimly seen through the mists of the deep, where the foe's haughty host in dread silence reposes, what is that which the breeze o'er the towering steep, as it fitfully blows, half conceals, half discloses? Now it catches the gleam of the morning's first beam, in full glory reflected, now shines on the stream. 'Tis the Star-Spangled Banner, oh, long may it wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. And where is that band who so vauntingly swore that the house of war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country, should leave us no more? Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps' pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. And the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph doth wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Oh, thus be it ever when freemen shall stand between their loved home and the war's desolation, blessed with victory and peace, May the heaven-rescued land praise the power that hath made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must, when our cause it is just. And this be our motto, in God is our trust. And the star-spangled banner in triumph shall wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. So that was our national anthem, and I enjoyed singing that. Yeah, some of it was harder than other parts, and there was some of it that I redid, and some that I redid more than once. We'll see how I edit it later. But so I have one final selection for this episode, and this is actually a brand new poem that was written this year. So my podcast is all about the literature of history, so this is not particularly historical, although it is technically in the past that it was written. But I have permission directly from the author to read this, and it is in honor of America's 250th. This is The Defense of Liberty, America's 250th, a call to recall, tend, and defend, written by Amy Clubb. The stars and stripes mocked in the street, trampled, spat upon, and set aflame, mobs screaming their blame, lies served up and eaten whole, this battle on the nation's soul. While so many stay in their seat, who will rise to tend and defend the unraveling seams to mend? Take up the flag, beaten and torn, raise it high for generations unborn. 2 worlds of good and evil meet on that April day in '75. Courageous men for freedom strive, for the welfare of a people, families, home, and steeple. Hark, the enemy's tramping feet, Minutemen catch each other's eye, resolve made and ready to die. Militia outnumbered 10 to 1, bravely looked down tyranny's gun. Now we fight in the words we tweet, September 10 and 25. Charlie's goal was to help kids thrive. Evil lowered its deadly bead to execute a heinous deed. Darkness vainly tried to defeat, but when that bullet found its mark, though martyred a man, lit a spark. Amid the terror, tears, and grief, the Spirit of God brought relief. He breathed upon ripe fields of wheat. The lost were found, no sins remain. Send me, Lord, was the saints' refrain. Solemn mantle, excited stride, proclaim this freedom far and wide. From salvation to civics complete, raise up the torch of freedom's light. Hold fast to truth against the night. Hold nothing back, give it your all. Trust in the one who hears your call. Victory or death, no retreat. Steward this light from heaven's beam, freedom for which so many dream. Unfurl the flag from sea to sea, and let it fly for liberty. Well, that is the conclusion of the readings for this episode. In that poem, it mentions Charlie Kirk, who was murdered last year, and it's very sad that he's not able to see the 250th. He's not able to be here with the rest of us and celebrate this great milestone of our nation's history. But he is in heaven. Thanks be to God. I encourage you once again to pray for our nation, because we need it very much. And it is my prayer that there will be a great awakening that sweeps across this nation, such as has never been seen in this land. And I pray that we remain free, and that we always hold high the torch of freedom, and that if it must fall because of the end times, that it will only fall from our lifeless hands, and that we will not drop it. So I encourage you to pray for our nation, and praise the Lord for our nation as well. Thank Him for all the blessings of liberty that He has bestowed on us. And Give yourself wholly to Him and serve Him with all of your heart and trust Him with all of your heart because He is trustworthy. So that's all for this episode, and until next time, keep reading and keep learning. Our Father's God, to Thee, Author of liberty, to Thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by Thy might, great God our King. Happy 250th, everyone. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. May God bless you all, and may God bless the United States of America, the land that I love.